Hey, what is going on, everybody? How are you all doing today? I hope you all are having a wonderful and fantastic day today, and if not, hopefully you all will have a better tomorrow. So today we are going to have a discussion about the Faunus and the Faunus Rights Revolution, as well as a bit of Faunus discrimination. I find the history of the Faunus to be a very interesting one, and I thought we could go over it. And maybe there are some things that you may not have already know about the Faunus in this. So sit back, relax, I hope you all enjoy, and let's go ahead and get started. So around the time that humanity had started its second run, being reborn through dust, Faunus came about. Now while it's still unknown where Faunus exactly came from, Faunus appear to be human in almost every single way. They just have one thing that stands out a bit differently, which is their single animalistic trait, which can be more obvious to some than others, which pertains of cat ears, monkey tails, rabbit ears, tiger claws. They all have some kind of animalistic trait in that way, and early man was at one time afraid of the Faunus because of their animal-like appearances that seemed unusual when it comes to other individuals. And because of this, much like things that humans didn't understand, they started to create rumors and stories about the Faunus, and people avoided them as if they were some kind of disease or some kind of terrible thing, and humans would push them out of their own settlements, and it would even get so bad that the humans would hunt them down out of fear. And as man started to outnumber the Faunus began to believe that man had become nothing more than a hostile species. And, you know, that's kind of understandable, considering how the humans had treated the Faunus, thus leading into feuds between the species, and the land that was at one time safe from the Grimm was in constant short supply. But then the Grimm is actually what brought the humans and the Faunus together during an attack on the village known as Faunus. And that was the only reason why anyone had survived, was because the humans and the Faunus joined forces to take on the Grimm. That was a common enemy to both sides. But that didn't repair the problems between the humans and the Faunus. As a matter of fact, there were still some humans that tried to make an excuse to exploit and alienate them. So history didn't go too well for the Faunus, because while there were differing opinions all over Remnant, that still didn't exactly help things for them until the Great War with Vale and Vacuo against Mantle and Mistral, in which this was a war that was unlike anyone had ever seen, and when it finally ended, the world was very desperate to find compromises and agreements that would ensure that they would never see the likes of war such as this ever again. But that didn't mean all was well for the Faunus. Sometime after the Great War was when the Faunus Rights Revolution began. You see, this was a war that lasted at least 3 years, and it was a large-scale one at that. You see, what caused this war was, after the Great War, efforts were made for everyone worldwide to reach compromise so that none of the kingdoms would ever go into a war like this ever again. And one of those efforts actually involved the Faunus gaining equal rights as well as ownership of menagerie. Now, while some Faunus were okay and they thought that this was a good deal to have menagerie, some of them saw menagerie as a slap in the face to them. But as time went on, it became more and more apparent to the Faunus that the humans were trying to have all the Faunus live on menagerie and to confine them away from other civilization, which would jeopardize the agreement that they have for the rights of the Faunus that they earned by fighting in the Great War. And so, in response, the Faunus fought back, which then sparked the Faunus Rights Revolution. And this war is a fairly recent one because the Great War itself took place nearly 80 years before the events of Volume 1. So that means that this Faunus Rights Revolution took place after the Great War, but sometime before Volume 1. So this is a fairly recent war. Now, we don't know accurately how long it was after the Great War occurred, but we know it's somewhere along the timeline. And it's still before Volume 1, so it's fairly recent. And one thing that was the turning point within the war was during its 3rd year in the Battle of Fort Castle. And this is when the general known as Lagoon, who was known as an inexperienced leader in the human army, attempted to ambush the Faunus while they were in their sleep, and the Faunus used their nearly perfect night vision to their advantage, and then they defeated the humans' larger army soundly in the middle of the night. Now, it's unknown exactly how long this war had actually gone on, but in the aftermath of the war, Despite the Faunus being able to live amongst the humans, after the end of the war, they were still subject of discrimination, as Blake mentions herself that some shops will not even sell things to Faunus. As a matter of fact, we saw in Volume 4 some of the discrimination by that one bar that Crow went into and a sign outside of it saying, "No Faunus allowed." So they're still under discrimination even after that, but it doesn't even stop there. The Schnee Dust Company, also involved in this, has controversial labor forces, as mentioned by Blake in Volume 1, Chapter 2. And by the way that Blake states this, it seems that she's talking about the Faunus. And further evidence to back this up is when you watch the World of Remnant episode about the Schnee Dust Company, and you have Crow explain cheap labor, dangerous working conditions is what the Schnee Dust Company does. Not only that, but if you look at Ilya, and a part of her character arc was the reason why she joined the White Fang, which I'm going to get to them in a moment, is because of the incident that took place in dust mines involving the many deaths of Faunus, including Ilya's own parents, in which the friends of hers that were from Atlas snickered and joked around about their deaths, which led to Ilya assaulting them later on. And then you have Adam, who covered his face over the mark of shame, or the brand, that was put onto his eye by the Schnee Dust Company, which shows you that whether he either was captured during one of the raids that he had on the Schnee Dust Company, or B, he just disagreed with their labor and he didn't want to work for them, whatever the case may be, they branded him. And it shows you that the Schnee Dust Company handled the Faunus as if they were nothing more than cattle. And because of further discrimination, you can tell that Blake herself was afraid to reveal that she was a Faunus, so she tried to act as if she was a human to blend in with them, much similar to what Ilya did as well when she used to blend in with humans too. And this leads me to my next point, which a lot of Faunus, due to discrimination, and after the Faunus Rights Revolution, this led to the uprising of the White Fang, to which the White Fang was an organization that was set up, and this was intended to serve as a perspective and a symbol of peace and unity between humans and the Faunus, but ultimately, this idea evidently was abandoned in the face of continuing discrimination, which this led to rallies and trying to make equality between humans and the Faunus, which, of course, we know that Blake herself was a part of as a child. She was hoping that humans and Faunus could one day put aside their differences and just have equality, that they could be seen as equals and not looked down upon by the humans, and that the discrimination would eventually stop one day. And not only was Blake a part of these rallies and her family, obviously with Gira being in charge at one point, they were really trying to do a good thing. And Gira himself, he was more of a pacifist within the situation, because instead of wanting to have aggressive situations, he would rather talk his way through the situation, which, in truth, is not a bad idea, but it didn't seem to really work out, and it almost cost him his life in the Adam character short when the humans start shooting at him, and which then leads to Adam stopping the humans from bringing any harm to Gira or any of the other White Fang members, but this also leads to Sienna Khan not agreeing with Gira in the way that he handles things, and because of their dispute, eventually Gira left the White Fang and Sienna Khan took over. Now, while Gira didn't want any violence, which would make sense considering that the humans still see Faunus as nothing more than lowly primitive beings or criminals, and they discriminate against them in those areas, Sienna Khan had a new idea, and Sienna Khan had a more aggressive approach. These original peaceful protests that Gira would go about became violent, and Sienna Khan then started having the organization carry out terroristic acts such as setting fire to shops that refused to serve the Faunus, hijacking cargo from companies that use Faunus labor, such as the Schnee Dust Company, because they were very well known for that. And they would even go so far as to murder and abduct individuals, such as when Weiss states about how she had family and friends that had gone missing or had been killed. And so it shows you how far the White Fang had changed from what Blake had known as just peaceful protesting to aggressive terrorist acts that made the White Fang look worse, which then reflected upon the Faunus, because the Faunus were the ones that were a part of the White Fang. Not all Faunus, but the ones that were a part of it. But it gave a bad name to all the Faunus out there, and it made them look as bad as humans had been making them out to look. But it didn't stop there, because the fall of Beacon certainly was not another way to make things look any better. And because of the fall of Beacon, this yet again made the White Fang look even worse. And yet, things still didn't look up for the White Fang yet again, because after the fall of Beacon, the next event to take place was Adam taking over the White Fang and killing Sienna Khan. He somehow convinced other members of the White Fang to join him, and this led to another problem, because as Adam states to Sienna Khan before he kills her, that they have exactly what the humans have and more, and that the humans should serve them. So, Adam obviously had a bad ideology, and yet more White Fang members had followed him until, obviously, the end of Volume 5, and that whole issue. But Blake did make a stand, taking down Corsic and Finnick with her family, even though Corsic, Finnick, and Adam had that plan to kill off Blake's parents and have Blake be kidnapped and brought to Adam. What she does tell the Faunus is that the Faunus did this, not humans, and that they should rally together to stop the White Fang and protect the humans at Haven. And this is a step certainly within the right direction, because while Faunus may still be discriminated against, at the same time, they're still trying to get past that discrimination. And the Battle of Haven proved one thing, that the Faunus themselves can put their differences aside to try to save people, and that they themselves are not all bad, that not every Faunus is bad, and it goes the same with humans. Not every human is bad either, and it seems that they started to see a little more of that. And that now, maybe after this whole issue with the Battle of Haven, maybe the Faunus themselves and the humans can start to make things right between one another. Maybe the Faunus can actually be seen in a better light after they help save Haven. So, even though discrimination probably will never fully stop between the humans and the Faunus, maybe the humans can start to see that the actions of the Faunus, they're not all bad, that there are good Faunus out there too, and maybe it'll help ease them a little bit towards the Faunus. But anyways, let me know what you think down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments down below. But anyways, thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed it. And if you did enjoy, hit the video with a like, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and share this with your friends if you found this informative or useful. Well, anyways, I hope you all have yourselves a wonderful and fantastic day today. And remember, if today was not a good day, tomorrow could always be better. Take care of yourselves and everyone around you, and have yourselves a good one out there, everybody.